Gods, mummies, and the underworld. This is amazing facts on ancient Egypt. They couldn't stand up to the plagues she released. We'll be looking at why tombs contained false doors, carved into stone walls, and what the trials of facing the underworld could lead to. They were viewed as symbols of rebirth. Let's begin! The scarab beetle was one of ancient Egypt's most important symbols. These little creatures represented rebirth and transformation. Egyptians placed scarab amulets in tombs, believing they helped the dead journey safely into the afterlife. Some scarabs were even inscribed with magical spells for protection. The afterlife wasn't all golden fields and paradise. Duat, the Egyptian underworld, was filled with dangerous creatures, fire pits, and terrifying demons. Souls had to pass gruesome challenges before reaching eternal peace. If they failed, they faced total destruction by the dreaded devourer of souls. Sekhmet, the lion-headed goddess, was both feared and revered. She was the goddess of war and disease, said to breathe fire and unleash plagues on her enemies. Pharaohs prayed to her for victory, but when she was angry, she could devastate entire cities with sickness and destruction. Egyptians believed that a person's soul had two parts, the Ba and the Ka. The Ba was a person's personality, while the Ka was their life force. After death, the Ba could travel between the world of the living and the dead, but the Ka needed offerings and rituals to survive in the afterlife. The first mummies weren't created on purpose. In early Egypt, bodies buried in the desert were naturally preserved by the hot, dry sand. When Egyptians realized this, they developed intentional mummification, using oils, resins, and linen wrappings to perfect the process. Medicine in ancient Egypt wasn't just science, it was magic. Heka, the god of magic, was believed to give healing powers to priests and doctors. Many medical treatments included spells and incantations, blending spirituality and science into one. Imagine a statue of a god speaking. In Egyptian temples, priests would whisper into statues, pretending the gods were answering worshippers' prayers. This created a direct link between the gods and the people, making temples powerful centers of spiritual guidance. The deadly Nile crocodile was sacred in ancient Egypt. It was associated with Sobek, the god of strength and protection. Some temples even kept live crocodiles as sacred animals, believing they carried Sobek's spirit. But in the wild, they were still terrifying predators. Egyptians loved cats, and no goddess was more beloved than Bastet. She was the protector of home, family, and fertility, often shown as a gentle cat or fierce lioness. Killing a cat, even by accident, was considered a serious crime. Many Egyptian tombs contained false doors, carved into stone walls. These weren't mistakes. They were meant to let spirits pass between the living and the dead. Families placed food and offerings by these doors, believing their ancestors' spirits would come through and accept them. The ancient Egyptians didn't just worship a handful of gods. They believed in over 2,000 deities. Some gods were well known, like Ra, Osiris, and Anubis, while others were more obscure. Each god had a specific role, from creation to protection, love, war, and even writing. Meet Anubis, the god of mummification and the afterlife. With his jackal head, he guided souls into the next world and oversaw the embalming process. Egyptians believed Anubis protected the dead from evil spirits, and that's why his image appears in so many tombs. One of Egypt's most dramatic legends is the murder of Osiris, god of the afterlife. His jealous brother Set tricked and killed him, cutting his body into pieces. But thanks to his wife Isis, Osiris was magically revived and became ruler of the underworld, while their son Horus avenged him. Ancient Egyptians believed that after death, your heart was weighed against a feather in the hall of judgment. This feather belonged to Ma'at, the goddess of truth and justice. If your heart was lighter than the feather, you could enter paradise. But if it was heavy with sin, it was devoured by a terrifying beast. Without Ma'at, they believed the world would fall into chaos. The Eye of Horus is one of Egypt's most famous symbols, representing protection, healing, and power. Egyptians wore it as an amulet, believing it could guard them against evil and illness. Even today, you can still find the Eye of Horus in jewelry and artwork around the world. Every night, the mighty sun god Ra was believed to travel through the underworld, battling demons and the chaos serpent Apophis. If Ra won, the sun would rise again. But if he lost, total darkness and destruction. Thankfully, Ra always triumphed, or so they hoped. Talk about dedication. Egyptian priests had to shave their heads, bodies, and even eyebrows to stay pure before entering temples. They bathed several times a day and followed strict diets to remain worthy of serving the gods. The Egyptians weren't just great builders, they were astronomical geniuses. The temple of Abu Simbel was built so that, twice a year, the sun would perfectly illuminate statues of the gods inside. These solar alignments weren't accidents, they were proof of Egypt's deep connection to the cosmos. To navigate the afterlife, Egyptians believed the dead needed a guidebook, literally. The Book of the Dead contained spells and instructions to help souls avoid demons, pass trials, and reach paradise. Some even had spells to transform into animals or escape traps in the underworld.